Good day, everybody. My name is Paul Rosso with RE/MAX Properties, and welcome to the Bucks County Homes and Living Show.
Hey, everybody.
We have a great show here for you today.
And welcome to this part.
Okay. We have a great show for you today, and my guest today is Casey Wall with Foundation Abstract. Welcome, Casey. Thank you for coming in and talking to us today about the title insurance business. And if we get time today, we'll talk a little bit about closing day also, what takes place on closing day. Sure. So, Casey, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What do you do and things like that?
Absolutely. Foundation Abstract is how we do business in Pennsylvania. We're known in New Jersey as Foundation Title. We provide title insurance and settlement services for residential and commercial buyers, as well as for anyone needing a refinance. So we can provide all those services, and we work well with attorneys as well.
Okay, terrific. I forgot to mention our call-in line if you have any questions for Casey or myself about the title insurance business. You can call us at 856-359-4232. And Casey, you can tell us a little bit about Foundation Abstract and Foundation Title?
The company started around 2005 with a couple of professionals from the underwriter side who broke out on their own and started an agency in New Jersey. Shortly thereafter, we went from one office in a single building to 12 offices throughout the state of New Jersey. We had an office in Philadelphia. That's when we started doing Pennsylvania business. We've added an office in Horsham, Pennsylvania, which is where we do most of our Pennsylvania production and closings out of.
And why, people sometimes they think they have to use the realtor's title company, and that's not the case. And so why would somebody, you think, choose Foundation Title?
First of all, we have a lot of experience. We're not a very old company, but we have a lot of people who've been in the industry for a very long time working for us. And we also try to put great emphasis on customer service and making sure that the buyer's experience or the borrower's experience is the best possible, because, as you know, buying a house can be, nerve-wracking to begin with, and problematic at times. There's a lot of things that could arise, and the same with refinancing your mortgage. It could be scary, and to have a professional sitting there with you, or a group of professionals with you all along the way who are very familiar with the process, is of a great benefit. And title insurance, some people may not know what title insurance actually is. Title insurance is what they call a contract of indemnity. And it's the only insurance where you pay one time, and it lasts for as long as you own the property. If you stop paying your homeowner's insurance, well, that policy is going to lapse and you're no longer covered. But you pay for your title insurance once when you close, and it's good for as long as you own the home. And we protect you against encumbrances on the property, like liens or easements. We also protect you from the interests of prior owners or people who claim to have an interest in the property. In addition to that, we also are the key instrument for maintaining the public record. Without the title insurance industry, the clerk's office might be, a wreck. It'd be really hard to find a document without the title abstractors and searchers in there every day, searching the record, finding mistakes, reporting it to the clerk, and making sure the record is correct. So we also provide a great public service.
Excellent. In case you mentioned about protecting against prior ownership, what would happen if somebody came back, previous owner came back and tried to lay claim that they have rights to that property? What happened in that case?
What you would do, it's like if you purchased a property and you got an owner's policy. Somebody came out, provided you with the legal papers saying that they have a right to the property and they're going to sue you. You would file a claim under your policy. You pull your policy out of the drawer, go to the part where it says how to file a claim, and file a claim in accordance with the policy. At that point, the underwriter may work with the agent, or the underwriter may undertake directly to address it, and they'll figure out how this person came about to make that claim, whether or not it's valid, and whether or not there's any action we need to take. Now, the policy itself, in addition to protecting you monetarily from any loss, also agrees to fight the claim in court.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be stuck with the legal fees. It would be up to the underwriter to defend that claim in court. So as long as it's a valid claim, that we pay claims all the time. The title insurance industry is, to my knowledge, is very good about paying on their claims.
Okay.
And it's one of the reasons why America is so prosperous. We have such a robust title insurance industry that actually pays their claims.
All right, terrific. Now, are title companies regulated by the government?
Yes, in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They are regulated by the respective bureaus of insurance.
Okay.
The rates are also regulated.
Okay.
In New Jersey, it's the New Jersey Land Title Insurance Rating Bureau, and in Pennsylvania, it's the Title Insurance Rating Bureau of Pennsylvania, or TURBOP. The rates are published, so
Okay.
it's public knowledge, and they're the same for everyone that's a member of that rating bureau.
Okay. And then now a buyer buys the house and everything gets finalized and they go to order title. What takes place once they order title?
Once they order title, it's going to come to a processor in our office. It's going to take the information sheet and do a preliminary search, usually from one of our vendors, to find the property. Where is it located? What's the assessor's parcel number in Pennsylvania, or what's the tax lot block in New Jersey? Try to identify it.
Okay.
Then we're going to order a county search. And the county search is going to go into the actual records and find the chain of ownership. So for a purchase, we're usually looking at a 40 to 60 year search is the industry standard.
Okay.
The reasoning being anything past 60 years you would figure would be of no consequence. That being said, if the searcher finds that there are issues in the chain of title, we'll take it back as far as we need to go to make sure that we're conveying good title.
Okay.
Once the county search is delivered, we're going to get some ancillary searches, depending on the file, what's needed. In New Jersey, quite often you'll see tideland searches. So we have tideland searches, tideland issues in New Jersey on the shores. In Pennsylvania, there's going to be judgment searches and utility and assessment searches done for the property to make sure that we know anything that might be a lien on the property gets listed on our commitment as something that needs to be taken care of before we close, before settlement is finished.
Okay. So if someone has a lien that was filed in a different county, are you able to pick that up also?
Well, I don't know that we would, because that lien should not affect the property. If it's filed at the county level,
Okay.
it would only affect the property that's in that county. In New Jersey, it's different. They file their lien, their judgments at the Superior Court level.
Okay.
So in New Jersey, a lien in the Superior Court's a lien all over. In Pennsylvania, they have to file it in the county where the property resides in order for it to be a lien.
Okay. And what about like IRS liens? How are they handled in title?
They'll usually be filed the same way. We can also
Okay.
search the United States District Courts for liens that are filed there as well as bankruptcies, to see if there are any open bankruptcies for the current owners or in the chain of title that we need to be concerned about.
And all of these liens have to be paid off at closing, is that correct?
Yeah, unless they were shut out some way, like in a foreclosure. If a lien was for a prior owner and that creditor was set up as a defendant in the foreclosure, and the foreclosure went through regularly, which is something we would also look up, getting an abstract of the foreclosure.
Okay.
That creditor could be cut out. And those are things that we would be able to determine after a review of all the search documents.
Okay, terrific. And what are some typical things that may come up that may be out of the ordinary in a title search? Have you come across anything that's out of the ordinary? I
Oh,
would
sure.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Okay.
things that are not exactly what you want to see on every file.
Sure.
I would say probably the most common thing would be estates.
Okay.
A good estate is when a titled person passes and leaves a clear will that's probated in the county surrogate's court and clearly tells us who has title to the property and who's the executor or the personal representative of the estate. But that doesn't always happen. A lot of times people die without a will, or they die with a will, but then another will pops up, or we have codicils that are, so that can be tricky. But as long as we do our due diligence and make sure we get the surrogate searches in, generally speaking, we don't have a problem once we get all the facts.
Okay. Now, what about in a divorce situation where divorce may not be finalized, and can a title still be transferred? Let's say if one party doesn't want to sell and one party does, how does that handle title-wise?
So if we have a husband and wife in title and they're going through a divorce, if the divorce is not final, both people have an interest in the properties, and you can't really force either one to sell it if they don't want to. If the divorce is finalized and there's an order from the court saying that A is required to cooperate and sign the documents for the conveyance of the property, usually that will be enough to compel them, but there are also times when the court order will stipulate that if A does not cooperate, B is granted the power of attorney for A in order to consummate the sale.
And then you're satisfied with that as far as clearing title?
If we've got an order from a judge, we're good.
Okay, terrific. And also, if you have a property settlement, that also applies also for you?
Sure.
There's been a property settlement and divorce finalization?
Exactly. If there's a finalized divorce with a property settlement agreement attached, we assume that the judge, and usually in the language of the divorce decree, it will say, the property settlement agreement attached here too. So we can go by that and rely upon that as to how the property should be disposed.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I come across a lot of times with my sellers is that they may have an old mortgage that shows up on title, and there might have been like 3 or 4 mergers in the meantime of banks. And all of a sudden we get, shows up on a title report, and the title company wants that cleared up. And how do we go about doing that?
If it's a really old mortgage, I know that there's a provision in New Jersey that allows us to discount it. I think we have the same provision in Pennsylvania. I'm a New Jersey guy, so I'm speaking with a little bit less authority on that, but I'm pretty sure that there is. If it's really old, if it's past the date of maturity by a certain amount of time. In New Jersey, we used to rely on 20 years, and there's a new statute that lets us rely on 6 years past the date of maturity. So if it was a 30-year mortgage that they took out 36 years ago, and the sellers say, nobody's ever contacted us with a demand for payment on this mortgage, we're just going to write over it. So we won't make everybody go through the expense and time and weight of having to have that mortgage removed. We'll just leave it of record with the understanding that it's of minimal or no risk.
Okay. And along with that, lost my train of thought there. So, so that takes care of the mortgages that are outstanding. And anything else, I remember what I wanted to do. People a lot of times get their mortgage payoffs sent back to them, but they never file it in the courthouse. And that's something that they should do. Is that correct?
Yeah. Speaking of like the discharge, or the cancellation of mortgage. We like to take control of that. We tell our sellers or our borrowers who are refinancing, if for some reason the bank sends you the discharge, or the canceled mortgage instead of to us, please contact us immediately. Don't lose it. Don't throw it out. Call us. We'll make arrangements to collect it and make sure that it's recorded in the proper venue. Okay,
terrific. Now, once all you have the records, everything being cleared up, you issue what's called a clear title to the property?
That would be the policy. That's the end result. So first we'll issue a commitment. That's pre-closing. The commitment will show the status of title, who we intend to insure, anything that we require to be satisfied prior to or at settlement, and all of the exceptions to coverage, things that we're not going to remove as an exception would be like an easement or a restriction that runs with the land. After settlement, they'll get a policy which will be similar in form but a little different. It will show who's insured for what liability, how they came to be entitled, or how they came to gain the interest that they have in the land in the case of a loan policy. And then it will show the exceptions to coverage that were in our exceptions on the commitment, as well as the legal description that we're insuring.
Okay, terrific. And when people are taking title, let's say a husband and wife, let's start off with the husband and wife. How are they taking title to a property?
If a husband and wife take title as husband and wife, they're married at the time they take title, they're considered what's called tenants by the entirety. So if one passes, the other one would take title to their interest, free and clear of the other's liens, the other's independent liens. If they had any shared liens, those, of course, would still attach.
Okay.
A similar way to take title would be what's called joint tenants, sometimes called joint tenants with right of survivorship.
Okay.
And what that means is if you and I took title, we don't have to be married, but we could say we're going to take title as joint tenants with right of survivorship. And if I were to pass, my interest would pass to you by operation of law, by right of survivorship, free and clear of my independent liens.
Okay.
Now that would mean that my heirs would have no interest in the property.
Okay.
So the other way for you and I to take title would be as what's called tenants in common. Tenancy in common means that you have an interest in the property and I have an interest in the property. We can divide that interest however we like. It can be 50-50, 60-40. When either
Something
one
in
of
writing,
them,
right?
Yeah, that's something that you want in writing
Sure.
on the grantee clause in the deed that we prepare,
definitely.
or that's prepared for us. That should be spelled out. And when one of us passes, title devolves to our heirs rather than to the other party. So if I were to pass, you would still have your 50% interest, but then my 50% interest would be in my estate. So if I died intestate, it would go to my wife and my children. If I died testate, meaning I left a will, the title would pass under my will and however I directed it.
Okay. One of the common things we come across is a young couple getting ready to get married. They take title prior to purchasing the property.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them take it with right of survivorship, but some don't.
Mm-hmm.
And do they need to change that title once they get married?
Once they get married, if they took title as joint tenants, they're covered. And now in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure the law. In New Jersey, I know that if they didn't say joint tenants in the deed and they were not married at the time the deed was recorded and executed, they are tenants in common.
Okay.
So they might need to record a corrective deed to say we are husband and wife, tenants by the entirety.
Okay.
But that's if they were not married at the time they took title.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, I'll have to check up on that for myself.
Yeah, we
for
can.
Pennsylvania
Anybody
side.
can follow up with me. I'll give you my email address, and
Okay.
I have resources where we can confirm that.
All right, excellent. And so, title commitment's done, we got the mortgage approval, and we're getting ready to close finally, okay? And that's always a good time for buyers and sellers when it's time to close.
Right.
As we get close to closing, a couple things are going to happen, okay? Can you explain what a HUD-1 sheet is? And that's something that initially a buyer or seller is going to get a preliminary version of that,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll get a final one at the closing table. So what is actually the HUD-1 form?
Sure. The HUD is the Housing and Urban Development Department.
Mm-hmm.
It's the standard closing form, and it's the required closing form for all residential closings.
Okay.
What it does is it sets out the buyer side of the transaction in one column and the seller side of the transaction in another column, shows all the fees and charges that each side is paying,
Mm-hmm.
and it also shows the details of the transaction. How much are we paying for the house? How much are we getting in a mortgage loan? And breaks it all down. It's basically an accounting sheet with some
Okay.
very specific lines to show where the charges are coming from and who's getting paid what.
Okay. And another thing that, say the buyer needs to bring funds to closing, can that be as a personal check, or how does that work?
Well, we have a policy that we don't accept personal checks unless
Okay.
they're pre-approved and they have to be under a certain amount.
Okay. And that's pretty typical.
That is pretty typical. That's
Right.
an industry standard. Personal checks, the problem with personal checks is that they're not always good,
Right.
and we can't have that. We have to have what are called good funds
Okay.
when we are doing a settlement. That means the money, all the monies that are going to be dispersed have to be in our bank account and cleared before we settle.
Okay.
So that's usually accomplished with a wire, which comes directly from one bank to our trust account at our
Okay.
bank, or with a bank check.
Bank check.
So
Okay.
the bank check, we can take that and rely upon that, but we will still, sometimes, depending on the transaction, take that check to the bank and get it in, just to make sure we've got good funds.
Definitely. And another thing that I know, especially in the last couple of years, has been very important is identification of the buyers and the sellers. Can you
Certainly.
speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, we require photo ID.
Okay. That's everybody.
That's
All the
everybody.
title
Yeah,
companies, right?
They should all be requiring photo ID. If they're
Okay.
not, I don't want to disparage anybody, but you should probably be doing business with somebody who's not requiring photo ID. A state-issued driver's license or identification is usually fine. Passport.
Anything else? Passport?
Passport's good. County ID, as long as it's got a photo. Anything usually government issued is what we're looking for. So not taking credit cards, even if you have your picture on it, or a business card is nice, but we can't use that either.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for the audience here as far as preparing for a successful closing?
Yes.
Anything we should, they should be doing in advance?
Absolutely. For buyers, I would say talk to your processor at the title agent. A lot of the times they're going to be insulated from them. They'll be going through their realtor or going through their lender, but it's okay to get the contact information and say, I'd like to talk to the processor at the title company, or the conveyancer, as they're called in Pennsylvania, just to make sure there's nothing that they need. Because when you play the telephone game, if everything's got to go through a third party, some things can be missed.
Sure.
So it's probably a good idea, if you're buying your first home, get the contact information for the title agent or the settlement agent and say, let me contact them just to make sure there's nothing that they're waiting on. And this way there'll be no surprises on your end on settlement day.
Sure.
They can ask you all the questions. If there's anything outstanding, they'll let you know what they need. And our people are great, so you'll enjoy the conversation.
All right, terrific. And one thing I just thought of that I didn't cover before is child support and alimony. It seems to be an initiative that does come up sometimes, right? And sometimes they don't find out to the end.
Yeah.
My understanding is all that has to be paid off now in Pennsylvania prior to closing.
Yeah, arrearages need to be paid.
Okay.
So there can be no arrearages, and they have to be current. So we like to know that in advance.
Sure.
But as you said, we don't always.
Right.
So in situations like that, an escrow or held money is usually set up either at the closing table or just before we get to the closing table, or we'll set up an agreement that the party signs that we're going to hold $20,000 in escrow pending a payoff statement from probation or wherever that needs to be paid to, so that we can submit that money directly to them, and that way we know there's nothing that's going to affect the new owner's title to the premises.
Sure. I see that also in the states where they haven't paid the estate tax. Some money's held until that's taken care of also.
Correct. Estates are another common situation where we'd like to, have all these things nicely tied up with a bow before we get to settlement, but it's not always going to happen. So a lot of times at the estate, especially if they own several properties, they might need to sell a few before they have enough money to actually pay their estate or inheritance taxes.
Right.
So in that case, we ask for estimates, fill out your return, estimate your payment, and then we'll hold an escrow for that amount, plus a little extra, just in case. Or we might, and sometimes if it's a very large estate and our property is just a small piece of it, we might hold all the proceeds until they can provide us with a good payoff statement.
Okay, terrific. And then we finally arrive at the day of closing, and the title company and abstract company representative has a big role to play right there at closing table.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about what their responsibilities are?
Sure. The closer is going to be a notary. So if there's any documents that don't come in already signed, they're going to be there and able to do that. And of course, they'll be helping the buyers with their purchase money mortgage to sign and notarize the documents that are required for that.
Okay.
They're also going to take you step by step through all the documents and have you sign them.
Which is mainly most papers are with the mortgage, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you have a mortgage with your closing, you're going to have a sore hand because you've got 100 documents to sign, and they're going to make sure that you don't miss any. So it's their responsibility to keep that organized, to make sure that we follow the lender's requirements for closing. And we're also going to collect the deed from the sellers and make sure that we've collected the recording fees and any of the taxes that need to be paid for the purchase on the HUD-1 settlement statement.
Okay.
We'll have both parties review the transaction with whoever they have with them. If the realtors want to go over it with them, because realtors are real estate professionals and they provide a very good service and having knowledge of this. If they're represented by an attorney and their attorney wants to review it, absolutely, they can do that. We also have closings where the lender representative comes in, and rather than have our closer go through the mortgage documents with them, the lender representative will go through that.
Right.
That all happens, it's all fine, and we're ready for all of those situations. The best thing that our closers do is to maintain a level head and a professional demeanor when those
Important
difficult
closing
closings
days,
come
yes.
up that we talked about. So that's probably what our closers do best, is to remain professional even when things get heated.
Things get heated up sometimes at the
Yes.
table, and I always like to take people outside the room if necessary. To calm things down and then bring them back in when everybody's a little calmer. Because majority of the settlements do go very smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare that I've found that there's a problem that comes up. If there's a problem that comes up, I try to handle it in private, so it's not a big hassle at the closing table there, definitely.
Right.
And so then at the end, we sign the HUD-1 forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the mortgage company, most time you have to get approval from the lender in order to disperse the monies and do the final transfer. Is that correct?
That's correct. What they do is they take that mortgage package that you just signed, along with the HUD that's been signed, and any other documents that the lender requires, and we'll either scan them in or fax them if they're still using fax machines at this point, and send it to the lender's clearance team so that they can take a look and make sure that we've done everything that we asked them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point they'll give us authorization to disperse. So the sellers will get their money, and all the other parties will get their money, and the buyers will get a set of keys and the promise of an owner's policy that protects them. It says that they own the property.
Terrific. Well, we traveled a long road here from the beginning to the actual closing date. And Casey, if someone went to contact Foundation Abstract Company in order to order title, how would they do that?
I would say the best way to get in contact with Foundation Abstract is through our representative, Kristen Mersky, which is Merski.
Okay.
And her cell phone number is 856-979-7540.
Okay, terrific. Well, Casey, I appreciate very much you coming out and taking time to talk to us a little bit about, kind of a dry subject, but a very important subject.
Oh, I love it. It's not dry for me.
I'm sure this is my
life. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people, it kind of happens in the background. So most times there aren't a lot of issues other than paying off the mortgage, but it's a real important part of the real estate process, especially if you need it. One of those things. It's not important until you need it, but if you need it, it's there to help, the buyers out of the new property there. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Next week we have Michael Ivankovich. He's going to be talking about antiquing in Bucks County. And so that sounds like a pretty exciting show coming up. I was talking to Michael today, finalizing some of the topics that we'll be covering next week. My name again is Paul Rosso with Remax Properties. If you have any questions, you can reach me at 215-778-9687. To follow our show, you can join us on Facebook at Good Life Bucks County and on Twitter at Bucks County Live. So again, we thank you for coming in here. Casey filled in at the last minute because one of the other title representatives that I had wasn't able to make it, so I really appreciate you coming out on short notice. And we hope to see you guys again next week for the Bucks County Homes of Living show. Have a great day now. Great week too.